Hey, Miss Lowe, how are you?
Hi, Miss Long. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for letting me come observe you yesterday.
Oh, my pleasure.
Can you just kind of talk about your lesson, what the kids were doing, what their expectation was, things like that?
Okay. We are working on writing an essay, and they had a writing task to use two passages and find evidence from both passages to support their reason and opinion as to whether they would like to live in a hot climate or a cold climate. This is Right Score resources as well as preparing them for the milestones.
Yeah, so I noticed they had paired passages that they had already read, and then students had to form their own opinion about whether they wanted to live in extreme cold or extreme heat. And you had students use a Google document. They created their own graphic organizer, which I thought was great. And I was really impressed that kids were able to navigate Google Docs so easily.
We have used Google Docs before, but just ensuring instead of writing this time, typing in advance for the milestones too. So
yeah, I think that's great practice, and students need that. So the students were prompted to first ask a question in their introduction, and then they had to state their opinion. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions just about your lesson, and then where do we want to go from there? So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst lesson you've taught and 10 being the best, how would you rate the lesson?
I would say an 8. I thought they did better than I expected, just with the typing itself. We have done paired passages over the year, but we have done that writing, and so this was the first time to incorporate typing and highlighting evidence, and then they are in differentiated groups, and so I think that really helps create scaffolding and sentence structure and sentence frames to get them started.
I noticed that when y'all said, okay, break up into your groups, they were just quick to disperse, and you could tell that they were familiar with what they were doing. What pleased you about the lesson? You kind of mentioned that with their typing.
I was impressed with their typing, actually, and the creating of their graphic organizer and their engagement in that. Writing is typically something that they struggle with, and so I did feel as though they were engaged in the topic.
Yeah, third grade writing is hard. Students are expected to write essays, and that's difficult for especially our population of English language learners. What would have to change to move the lesson closer to a 10?
I think I would like to see them more independent in creating. We did their introduction yesterday, and so maybe after this paired passage to see if they take that on in the next lesson.
What would your students be doing differently if your class was a 10?
Typing a little faster. I don't know if there's a typing program or something that we could look into, just so that would take the load off of the writing aspect. So if they knew how to type, they could actually focus on the task itself.
Well, and also the milestones, it's a time test. So, typing, trying to hunt and peck and find those keys, that takes time from them getting their ideas down.
Right.
Or from answering the other questions. Tell me more about what that would look like.
I guess thinking ahead, looking into a typing program or implementing some other quick types throughout the week, just so that it might be separate, but it's focusing in on that one skill so that they could master that and then focus on the writing task.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like the quick types idea. How could we measure that change? Getting students to type faster and taking on their own writing.
I think giving them maybe a timed quick type per week, and then noticing once given their passages and a task, their ability to take that on.
Okay, so what are you thinking about as your goal for your students?
Utilizing Microsoft Word or a Google Doc to create a written response in a timed manner to help improve Georgia Milestone score.
If you could hit that goal, would it really matter to you?
Yes, to increase student achievement. and build confidence in their writing.
And this doesn't just include this year. I mean, this carries on to their schooling as they go, just the importance of writing and how complex it gets as they get older. And what teaching strategy can you use to hit your goal?
I would say utilizing resources such as like Write Score resources. I have some ELL workbook resources for writing, and even in guided reading, constantly bringing back comparing, contrasting, and finding evidence. And so implementing that in other areas so that they're familiar with, main idea and summarizing, comparing, contrasting.
I like the idea of integrating writing in other content areas. So, what are your next steps? I observed you yesterday and y'all were working on the introduction. What are your next steps as you continue this opinion piece?
So utilizing the Google Docs to further expand upon their opinion and using evidence from both passages. So today we found a reason that would support their thinking and their opinion in one passage that they have typed, and using sentence frames like, in my opinion, according to the passage, to get them started. And then so tomorrow we're going to use the other passage to come up with evidence cited from there as well.
Do you have a plan to do this again with them and let them take it on themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
So there will be more paired passages in advance.
And when will you do that?
That will be, I'm believing, working because I am a support teacher in the classroom. So checking with Canvas, I think we're going to do that, if not next week.
In a week or two?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for letting me observe and coach you, and I'm excited to see what the students come up with.
I'll keep you posted.